I'm actually on a mission, man, you know? Like, I don't even think comedy is my calling in life. I think I'm meant for something greater. Like, I had a vision the other night, it came to me. I think my mission in life is to help white people.
And people's like, yo, Mike was garbage. So I'm gonna say again to Mike, hey Mike, tone down the volume on the shiny suits and expensive jewelry. Step your funny game up.
The Tiffany Haddish thing, has that been worked out at this point?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much? Can we talk about it?
Not at all.
Aries Spears is the kind of comedian you couldn't ignore, even if you tried. 1 minute, he's killing a room with dead-on impressions of Jay-Z, Shaq, or Denzel, and the next, he's lighting up the blogs for something that had nothing to do with a punchline. His whole story feels like 2 careers running at once. The one on stage where he was untouchable, and the one off stage where headlines and beefs never gave him peace.
He even mentioned me. He didn't say in detail. He just said Aries is one of my, yeah, he did. He goes,
oh, okay.
He goes, Aries is one of my enemies and I have to be able to something with my sight.
He's been the comic who stole the spotlight on national TV, the voice you heard on cartoons without even knowing it, and the guy who somehow always ended up in the middle of chaos, whether it was fights, lawsuits, or social media storms. This isn't just the story of a funny man, it's the story of how controversy kept chasing him, even when the laughs should have been enough.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Damn, it's like 4 niggas in here with white girls sitting up front. The nerve of you, mother.
Aries Spears' whole career felt like a tug-of-war. Crazy talent on one end, non-stop drama on the other. Every time people were hyping up his spot-on impressions, another headline was waiting to knock him back down. By the late 2010s, he was trending not for a joke, but for catching hands mid-interview and dragging it into court. A few years later, his name was in an even uglier story, lumped into a lawsuit with Tiffany Haddish that accused them of crossing lines with kids in old sketches. The case was dropped, but online, his name was already burned into people's memory for all the wrong reasons. The irony was, none of this chaos erased how he got there. He grew up around music thanks to his mom, who sang jazz, and he had a mic in his hand before most kids were even allowed in clubs. School threw him out, but stages let him in, and by his mid-teens, he was already mimicking James Brown and Jack Nicholson, like he'd been doing it for decades. Comedy clubs loved him, and that raw mix of hip-hop energy with old-school comedy swagger set him apart fast. Once he hit the big sketch stage, he was the guy bringing rappers, boxers, and movie stars to life better than anyone else. His run became the heartbeat of the show, the reason fans tuned in week after week. But behind the laughs, he wasn't blind. He saw how some skits leaned on stereotypes, how he had to play along with ideas he didn't always buy into. Fame made him a household name, but it also boxed him into corners he didn't want to stay in. And that's the split that defined the rest of his path. Off camera, he couldn't stay out of beefs, clashing with other comics, throwing shade on podcasts, letting rivalries spill all the way into headlines. For every time the spotlight hit him, there was another storm brewing, leaving his legacy tangled between the genius impressions everyone remembered and the endless fights that kept following him.
He even mentioned me. He didn't say in detail. He just said Aries is one of my, yeah, he did. He goes,
oh, okay.
He goes, Aries is one of my enemies and I have to be able to something with my sight.
Aries stayed in the mix as much for the chaos as for the comedy. Like I said a few seconds ago, after his sketch days, he kept a spotlight on himself by clashing with other comics just as much as by cracking jokes. His talent had already put him on the map, but his mouth and his temper made sure people never stopped talking. The longest feud hung over him like a cloud. Cat Williams. Spears swore Cat treated him like an enemy and called him out for constantly dragging other black comedians in public instead of squashing issues quietly. To Spears, Cat's constant explosions made everyone look messy, especially when stacked against Kevin Hart's clean-cut, business-focused grind. Whether people agreed with him or not, he painted Cat as the guy making it harder for the culture to win as a whole. But the beef that really stamped Spears' reputation didn't end with words. It ended with fists. During a live recording of a comedy podcast, an argument turned ugly, and a co-host started swinging at him. Cameras caught everything. Spears got knocked around, claimed he took multiple hits, and later took it to court. The clip spread instantly. Online, people replayed it again and again. And suddenly, Spears wasn't just the impression guy, he was the comic who got laid out on air.
And people's like, yo, Mike was garbage. So I'ma say again to Mike, hey Mike, tone down the volume on the shiny suits and expensive jewelry. Step your funny game up.
Things escalated after Spears made harsh jokes about Lizzo's weight, which blew up everywhere. Lizzo clapped back during her big award speech without even naming him, and Epps jumped in on social media, clowning Spears' career. Spears fired back, saying the beef with Epps ran deeper than that moment. Still, the whole thing showed how quick one offhand comment could turn into a full-blown internet storm when bigger names decided to jump into the mix. Kevin Hart turned into one of his favorite punching bags. On podcasts and interviews, he went at Hart for leaning on writers, saying real stand-up was supposed to come straight from the gut, not a writer's room. To him, Hart wasn't raw. He was the polished brand Hollywood loved. Big box office, safe jokes, made to sell out arenas. Spears would sometimes soften it by saying Hart was funny, but he never stopped hammering the idea that the system propped up watered-down comedy while pushing out the unfiltered voices. Talking that loud came with a price. Spears admitted he wasn't exactly first pick in casting offices anymore. Execs didn't want someone who might stir headlines before the cameras even started rolling. He even hinted that calling out Hart's rise made him a marked man in certain rooms. Whether it was blackballing or just bad timing, the result looked the same. Less work, fewer calls. Stack all the feuds, fights, and hot takes together, and it painted a bigger picture. Spears built his rep on being brutally honest, but in the internet era, that honesty was a double-edged sword. His edge kept him trending, but it also made him radioactive. The biggest hurdle in his career wasn't Hollywood or other comedians. It was the blowback from being Aries himself.
The Tiffany Haddish thing, has that been worked out at this point?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. Can we talk about it?
Not at all.
The drama around Aries wasn't just about who he was beefing with. It was the lawsuits and scandals that pushed his name way past comedy circles and straight into mainstream mess. His jokes could kill on stage, but off stage it felt like courtrooms and headlines were always waiting for him. No matter how the cases ended, the fallout usually worked against him. After the big explosions happened on Corey Holcomb's comedy podcast, then came the moment that nearly buried him. Spears and Tiffany Haddish got dragged into a lawsuit accusing them of exploiting kids in disturbing old sketches. Clips of him in one of those skits spread online, and the internet branded it pedo comedy. Haddish apologized, Spears called it nonsense, and within a month the case was dropped for good. But once those images hit the timeline, the damage was permanent. The court threw it out, but social media doesn't delete. That's where his career took the hardest hit. Clubs hesitated to book him, film and TV stopped calling, and every interview turned into him claiming he was blackballed. Maybe he was, maybe it was just the baggage. But the truth was clear. The scandals had started to outpace the stand-up. His talent hadn't disappeared, but the shadow of those lawsuits stretched further than any set he ever performed. In comedy, laughs can keep you afloat, but controversy online, that can sink you faster than a bad punchline. That Lizzo fiasco wasn't just another messy headline. It turned into the perfect example of how his mouth could drown out his career. The fight clip and the sketch scandal already had people side-eyeing him, but this moment sealed it. He could go viral for all the wrong reasons faster than he could for a set. What burned wasn't only the fat jokes, it was how fast people threw his own words back at him. Old clips of him admitting he needed to slim down, cracking on himself about health, all resurfaced. So when he aimed at Lizzo, it didn't land as comedy, it landed as hypocrisy. The crowd didn't laugh, they called it projection. And in an era where body image is a serious conversation, that kind of contradiction could cost a career. Once a clip takes off online, producers don't care if it was a joke. They care about the backlash. Aries became the guy whose name on a flyer made you wonder, are people coming for the set, or are they coming to drag him on Twitter? In today's culture, that edge blurred into liability. The Lizzo moment just summed it up. In comedy, it's not the best joke that sticks. It's the clip that explodes.
It's your boy, Young Hove, and you know how I'm nice. I know you're hungry, rice.
For all the drama that kept him trending, fights, lawsuits, messy interviews, his actual work still showed why people knew his name in the first place. Strip away the noise and you've got a career that stretched from clubs to TV screens, movie sets, and even cartoons. Stand-up was always home base. His specials blended razor-sharp impressions with jokes about race, Hollywood, and the messiness of political correctness. Fans didn't show up for polish. They showed up because he said things no one else would, and they never knew which character he'd drop into next. Backed by constant touring, he kept the loyal ones locked in, proving he could still pack a room on his own terms. Cartoons gave him another lane. He flipped his voice into full characters, from the booming entrepreneur Wizard Kelly on The Proud Family to Rufus Crab Miser in The Boondocks. These weren't just him showing off impressions, they were roles that showed his voice could carry a whole story. For execs too nervous to put him in front of the camera, his vocal work was a way to tap into the gift without the headlines. Movies kept him visible too. He showed up in comedies and bit parts during his MAD TV peak, holding his own alongside bigger names. None of it made him a Hollywood leading man, but it proved he could adapt to scripted work outside of sketches. Combined with the TV stuff, it padded out a resume that kept him in rotation through the late 90s and early 2000s. Then comedy went digital, and Spears didn't get left behind. Clips from his sets made their way onto YouTube, and his podcast appearances kept his voice in circulation. Even when he said things that sparked backlash, the reach was undeniable. Attention itself became the currency, and Aries always knew how to grab it. At the end of the day, Aries Spears' story outside the mess was about survival. The fame might have dipped, the headlines might have stung, but the craft stayed sharp. And in comedy, lasting counts just as much as peaking.